At the same time, the Israeli strike package that killed Ali Khamenei, the former supreme leader, the current supreme leader's dad, also killed two other Iranian officials who the White House was open to discussing government transition with. It's almost like Israel is just trying to create chaos and not wrap things up quickly. I think Israel wants the war to go on forever until Iran is weak. If they want to Syrianize Iran, they want just a dysfunctional, failed state with warring factions spinning out different terror groups all across the Middle East that'll justify their continued war posture. When asked about the regime change plan, the White House responded that the U.S. military had met or exceeded all of its objectives. Interesting, because Iran is still refusing to open the Strait of Hormuz or to give up its nuclear dust, as Trump would say.
Well, and there's like a further wrinkle now too, because didn't the president of the United States said that we might have to blow up Oman if they don't play ball?
Yes. Okay, I think that has to do with Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, all of them don't want to sign the Abraham Accords anymore. And that is part of the requirement to end the war now, is that everyone has to sign the Abraham Accords. In fact, when Trump was on the phone with the Saudi, I don't know if it was MBS or the Saudi ambassador or whatever, he talked about how this was a new requirement, and the other line went dead, and it caused Trump to go, "You still there?" Because it's so clearly just a non-starter for everyone involved. If these Arab governments sign the Abraham Accords and play nice with Israel after Gaza without securing a homeland for Palestinians and protecting it from Israel, then they'll all be, guillotined and with their heads out on pikes in front of their, ornate palaces that are maintained by the slave labor of their populace.
Yeah, and it seems as though the Abraham Accord condition is almost certainly just added on in order to ensure that this is not going to happen.
It's possible.
I mean, there's no way that they think that that's going to happen, right? There's no way that they think that the U.S. is in such a good position to add really difficult terms. I mean, maybe so, but I really doubt it.
I mean, that's the other added wrinkle here, or the other added reason is that I think Oman is the other half of the Iranians' plan to control the Strait of Hormuz, because it is so he's threatening Oman, saying if they play ball with Iran and not with the United States, including letting the strait stay open and signing the Abraham Accords and everything else that the United States wants, then he'll bomb them. What else do I have here? I think my notes are all out of order. I screwed up.
So, I heard the president say we have to open up the strait again because it's these are international waters. No one can control this. They're not even kind of international waters.
No, not really.
Like not at all.
They're the strait is close enough together so that there's not a far enough distance from the shore to make it international waters.
You don't reach international waters until I'm looking at a map of international waters, and like you basically have to go all the way into the this is not the Indian Ocean, is it? It's whatever. It's very far away. It's not at all. It's like the Iranian military does not operate there.
No.
I remember once in the 9th grade, I got sent to the principal's office because it is the Indian Ocean, because the teacher she got mad at me for not paying attention. She said, "You should come up to the front of the class and draw a map of the world and label it." And so I did. And I think that she thought that she was like shutting me down, making me look stupid. But instead I was like, no, I just know this stuff. So because I was dumb also. But anyways, this time I did not realize, that is the Indian Ocean.
I got in trouble in my geography class in 10th grade because we had a folder full of maps that we had to turn in at the end of every semester. And they were supposed to be labeled and filled out and everything because they were our study guides for our exams. And I turned in the folder, not at the end of the semester, at the end of every like period right before the exams. And I turned in my folder with all of the maps and stuff in it, and none of them were filled out. And she had said at the beginning of class, like, this is an exercise in just making sure that you can self-pace. So you can turn your folder in blank, but it means you're going to get an F on the exam. So she took my folder and she showed it to the entire class and said that I turned in a blank. I turned in all my maps blank, and that I was going to get an F on the exam as a result. And then she handed out the exams. And then when she handed them back the next time, I had an A on it. I got like a 98 on the exam. And I stood up in front of the class and showed everybody the 98 on my exam. And she got so mad at me, she started crying and sent me to the principal's office.
Well, yeah, that's
everything I was learning in 10th grade geography, I had learned in 5th grade geography.
one thing that I'm going to include myself here. We had not yet learned was tact
or humility, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or humility. That's right.
Okay, so moving on to Israel. This is still all part of the Iran war stuff, but it turns out that Israel's defense was largely carried out not by the David Sling and Iron Dome that the United States has spent billions of dollars building and maintaining, but from missile defense batteries run by the U.S., like the THAAD systems, and from the Navy located just offshore. Defense Department assessments told the Washington Post that the U.S. military expended far more advanced missile defense interceptors to protect Israel from Iran than Israel did itself. Over 200 THAAD interceptors, which is half the Pentagon's total inventory, more than 100 SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors from naval vessels. Israel, by comparison, fired fewer than 100 Arrow interceptors and about 90 David Sling interceptors, some used against the less sophisticated projectiles launched by Yemen and Lebanon. So the United States absorbed most of the cost of this war, which was started on behalf of and by Israel. That has significantly depleted U.S. inventories, and it's prompting analysts to warn that there is a serious readiness gap now. And the shortage has also alarmed allies in Asia, like Japan and South Korea, who rely on U.S. deterrent against the non-existent threats from North Korea and China. The U.S. now has roughly 200 interceptors remaining, with the production line unable to meet demand. And I saw another article right before...
Really? Only 200?
Yeah, I saw another article right before this. Saying that it will take, according to the CSIS, which is a Warhawk outlet, it will take up to 2030 or 2031 to fully recover the missiles fired, the Tomahawks, the Patriots, the THAADs, and the SM-3 and SM-6 missiles. It will take until 2031 to replace the Tomahawks. It'll take until 2029 to replace the Patriot interceptors. It'll take until 2029 to replace the THAAD defense missiles, and until 2029 to replace SM-3 and SM-6s. And to address the shortfalls, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon are investing billions into expanding production capacity. Even so, it will take years for them to get their production lines up to capacity and to spit them out. That means everybody who's relying on the United States to deliver air defense missiles, like Germany, Poland, Japan, South Korea, now have to wait until the United States replenishes its own inventories before receiving those, which means Ukraine is never getting another Patriot missile ever again. Which explains why they are getting absolutely pounded by Russian drones and missiles lately.
Yeah.
They're claiming to have shot down everything that the Russians send after them, but the footage of the strikes would indicate otherwise. But we'll talk about that later. So, if combat operations resume, like seriously resume, the imbalance will deepen, obviously. And Israeli air power has also been strained, with aircraft and pilots worn down by simultaneous operations against Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iran. By late March, Israel was only able to generate about 50% of the airstrikes that it produced at the beginning of the war. So Israel is being attrited by its constant warmongering, and the United States' inventories are being attrited by the fact that it has an overconfidence in its production capacity and technological abilities.
It has not even a boomer mentality. It's like a silent generation, or like a GI generation, understanding of U.S. economic output,
Right.
Productive capacity.
So, at the same time, Iran has destroyed over 20% of the U.S.'s MQ-9 Reaper fleet, which is over $1 billion in losses. This includes drones shot down in flight and destroyed on the ground, of which several were by Iranian missiles and drones. Bloomberg estimates that the United States has lost 30 MQ-9 Reaper drones, higher than the 24 noted in the recent Congressional Service report. The MQ-9 is a surveillance and strike drone, which typically carries Hellfire missiles or JDAM bombs. The loss adds to the $29 billion total cost of the war in Iran, according to the Pentagon officials, which I think is low. Iran's success in downing Reapers contradicts Trump's claims that Iran's air defenses had been obliterated. Also, they shot down an F-15 and an A-10 Warthog, and they clipped an F-35, and who knows how many other planes that they actually hit or clipped that we haven't been told about. And also they repeat the idea that Iran has mapped U.S. flight patterns, and that is a danger to U.S. service members and their equipment if conflict is renewed. Iran's air defenses are a mix of domestic Russian and Chinese systems, and Russia has reportedly been providing satellite imagery of U.S. military assets, and I think actually China has too. A lot of the after strike images that show how much damage has been done to U.S. bases and Israeli bases appear to have come from Chinese satellites. That's what I've heard. Let's see. In fact, speaking of which, those satellite images reveal that damages to Israeli military bases are catastrophic in some instances, and much more than Israel would lead the public to believe. Satellite analysis done by the company SOAR reported via the Hebrew outlet Yedioth Aharonoth, which sounds like a sorcerer or some kind of spell that a sorcerer might use, shows previously undisclosed damage to multiple Israeli bases during the March phase of the Iran war. This comes despite a total information blackout on the extent of the strikes. So at the Ramat David Air Base, 2 major damaged areas are identified. One is associated with support vehicles and equipment, and the second with fighter jet refueling and maintenance operations. The Mishar base, where images show a sudden change in ground surface between 5 and 10 of March, meaning they blew up the runways. SOAR analysts estimate this pattern is consistent with the strike on the base. And the Nevatim base, which shows visible damage at defensive positions inside the base. Those findings contradict official Israeli reports about Iranian and Hezbollah strikes, which They say they shot everything down, and the things that landed were, they did negligible damage. And of course, there's a lot more damage that cannot be detected from these satellite images alone. A lot of the strikes were done to buildings in the midst of Israeli cities where they house barracks and headquarters and stuff like that. Using their own citizens as human shields.
It's interesting because starting to get the feeling that like the Israelis might not be. That's weird.
Anything
right?
that Israel says is a lie.
Yeah.
Even when they're telling the truth, they're lying about something.
Yeah.
So Hezbollah's drone warfare has been kicking the shit out of the Israeli army in the north, which good for them, Hezbollah has shifted from traditional rockets to small, inexpensive drones, including quadcopters and fiber optic FPV drones, the way the Russians have in Ukraine. The fiber optic cable can easily make it through Lebanese customs with no restrictions, and it prevents radio jamming. There's nothing they can do there's nothing that the Israelis can do to jam these drones, and they allow for precision targeting with no lag or delay. Hezbollah also uses perching tactics where they land drones and reactivate them later as roadside bombs. Since the U.S.
That's clever.
Since the U.S. sponsored ceasefire, there have been 11 Israeli soldiers killed, 4 deaths caused by drones, including, there's a bunch of names. I don't care about that. But several more wounded in drone attacks. And also, there's reams of footage out there of drones destroying Israeli vehicles. Like I saw a supercut of drones hitting Israeli vehicles, and there must have been 40 different strikes that were on this 3-minute video. Of course, not all of those are going to destroy those vehicles, but if they know their business, they're doing multiple strikes on these vehicles to destroy them. Like I saw a video of the Ukrainians going after some Cold War era Russian tank, and they hit it with 11 drones before it finally backed up and drove away. And that was on a tank. But the videos that I've seen are mostly going after troop carriers. And some of the videos I saw have them driving the drones into the back of open hatches of troop carriers, which that will definitely do some damage.
Yeah.
Right. So Israel...
You don't have to take out, you don't have to destroy a vehicle in order to render it operation inoperable.
Right.
Or to remove it from the battlefield.
Israel's, quote, advanced air defense network cannot detect small quadcopters. The IDF countermeasures include 58,000 square meters of mesh netting installed on vehicles, planned but not fully deployable systems, AI-enabled smart shooter gun sights, and active protective systems for tanks. The IDF weren't expecting this fiber optic threat to come to their doorstep so quickly. I don't know why they wouldn't expect that. I mean, it's this. Militaries are very slow to adapt. They don't start to adapt until they start losing. Doctrine is a hard thing to change based on what happens elsewhere. Like if you look at World War I, there was every indication based on the Balkan Wars that warfare was going to be a dirty attritional slog with mass casualties from machine guns and artillery. But the great powers of Europe marched right into war as if they were still fighting Napoleonic battles.